Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be answering a question about the parable Jesus told about Lazarus and the rich man in Luke chapter 16. We're going to be talking about what the parable means and whether it's talking about heaven and hell as it's sometimes conceived. So let me first of all establish that the story Jesus was telling in Luke chapter 16, verses 19 to 31, is a parable. It's not like a real-life event, a historical event that Jesus Christ was recounting. It's a parable. And therefore, nothing in the parable should be taken literally. So Lazarus was not a literal figure. The rich man was not a literal figure. Because if the entire parable should be taken literally, right, then you would also have to take literally the fact that Lazarus, right, in the parable, could dip his finger in water and cool the tongue of a whole human burning in fire, which physically is not possible, right? Additionally, Lazarus being taken to heaven at that moment would contradict what Jesus said in John chapter 3, verse 13, right, that no person had ascended to heaven before him, right? And no man hath ascended up to heaven, but he that came down from heaven, even the Son of Man, which is in heaven. That's the John chapter 3, verse 13. Therefore, the parable has an allegorical, symbolic, or metaphorical meaning. So let's now dive in and actually talk a little bit about what the parable really means. So in the first place, Jesus was using the parable of Lazarus and the rich man to depict the Jewish enterprise at the time, run by the Pharisees, scribes, elders, and the Jewish elite. Jesus depicted the Jewish elders and Pharisees as the rich man who was clothed in purple and fared sumptuously every day because of the respect and honor that they were able to garner from the Jews. Their sanctimonious and outwardly pious behavior attracted the respect of the Jews at the time, according to Matthew chapter 6, verse 2, verse 5, verse 16, and chapter 23, verses 5 to 7. Lazarus represented the sincere children of God who were being deceived by the Pharisees, right? The lies and spiritually empty doctrines that the Pharisees taught were those crumbs that Lazarus was eating from the rich man's table. It was proven to all in AD 70 that the Pharisees, scribes, and the Jewish elite, they were not representing God's interests. Otherwise, if they were, they would not have been destroyed by the Romans in the humiliating manner that they were. On the other hand, the children of God, represented by Lazarus, were vindicated by that same event when their enemies fell according to their gospel. However, the parable also has a prophetic meaning. In connection with Revelation chapter 18, Christianity has also been overtaken by false religious leaders who, just like the Pharisees, continue to show this outward devotion and piety because that's what attracts followership. Whether it's the bishops and popes that wear elaborate garments to look holy, but in fact went into unholy alliances with political leaders in the past to rule the masses. If you read Revelation chapter 17, verses 1 to 6, it describes it as fornication. Or if you look at today's televangelists that are obviously using the gospel to enrich themselves, right? Romans chapter 16, verse 18, Jeremiah chapter 5, verses 26 to 28. So wherever you look, Christianity is now ridden with all kinds of charlatans and false prophets, according to Matthew chapter 24, verses 5 and 11. Collectively, they are the rich man. Lazarus represents sincere Christians today who are often deceived by these doctrines and are unable to find the knowledge of the truth. They're tossed to and fro by every wind of doctrine, according to Ephesians chapter 4, verse 14, unable to discern truth from error, according to Proverbs chapter 14, verse 15, right? The simple believeth every word. Now, these false religious leaders are beginning to experience the torment that Jesus prophesied. It is not a literal fire, but gradually their false piety is being exposed, according to Luke chapter 12, verse 2. Respect for the popes and bishops has dwindled significantly. Their speeches no longer carry weight and are ignored by politicians and world leaders. More and more people see through the prosperity gospel and the going to hell doctrines that, are really just money-making schemes. These false prophets are now in torment as they see church attendance dwindling. It's becoming harder and harder to make as much money from their flocks than it was before. The parable stated that Lazarus was carried into Abraham's bosom. This is not literal. It is not all Christians going to heaven or something, because Jesus said clearly, "Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth," in Matthew chapter 5, verse 5. Abraham's bosom is a symbol for God's approval and the fact that God will vindicate his own children from these false religious leaders. If you read Revelation chapter 6, verses 9 to 10, and Luke chapter 18, verses 1 to 8. And he is doing so now. Those of us who are sincere Christians feel happy that we can see through the deceit and lies that these false prophets are telling. And we rejoice that now their deeds are being exposed and they're losing respect, according to Revelation chapter 19, verses 1 to 6, and Psalm 58, verse 10. It puts smiles on the faces of those who wish to see God only preached in truth. And while we are nowhere near the culmination of these events, progress is being made faster and faster as the days go by, according to Isaiah chapter 60, verse 22. In summary, what is the real meaning of the parable of Lazarus and the rich man? The meaning is that false religious leaders have exploited God's flock for a very long time and left God's people with vain customs and traditions that offer little spiritual edification. However, the tables are now turning, and the respect that false religious leaders used to get is dwindling. Sincere Christians around the world are beginning to arise and shine to the new age in which falsehood dwindles and truth begins to come forth, according to Isaiah chapter 60, verse 1. Now, let me just make this extra note for the spiritually curious. In the strictest spiritual sense, the rich man in Luke chapter 16, verse 19, is Satan the devil himself. His false prophets on earth that we discussed earlier, they take inspiration from Satan. If you read 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 13 to 15, right? From the principalities and powers that drive the affairs of men on earth, according to Ephesians chapter 6, verse 12. Like the rich man, Satan had his glory, right? His good days, being the god of this world, according to 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4, and Matthew chapter 4, verses 8 to 9. And he has his false prophets on earth. So people who are looking for God ignorantly and naively go to these false prophets, thinking that they will get access to God through them, but they are deceived. Jesus was describing the change in condition that would take place. And Revelation chapter 12, verses 7 to 12 was that change in condition when Satan was defeated by Jesus and went from glory to ashes, from power to enslavement, and righteousness was vindicated. If you read Revelation chapter 6, verses 9 to 10, and Luke chapter 18, verses 1 to 8. It is this vindication that was represented by the comfort of Abraham's bosom in the parable. All right, so that's a lot of information, but that is really where Jesus Christ was getting at when he was telling the parable of Lazarus and the rich man. So I hope you were able to comprehend this, but feel free to watch the video again if you want to just follow it once more and see if you can get all the different parts of this, right? But this is really what Jesus Christ was talking about. So if you enjoyed this video and liked what I said, then I'd greatly appreciate it if you click the like button and subscribe button. And if you want to know when we come back with another video, you know what to do. There's the notification bell. All right, have a great day and God bless you.